Yo, what's happening, Raider Nation? It's your boy Soto here. You know what it is. Raiders versus the world. Talking about the team the world loves to hate, your Las Vegas Raiders. Alrighty. So, couple weeks is going to be the combine, okay? And then it's going to start to get really silly out here because you're going to have the combine, you're going to have all the pro days, you're going to have all the team visits and individual workouts and stuff like that. So, it's time to take a look at new Raiders GM John Spytek and what to expect from him in this whole draft process and how he works as general manager off of where he's been in the past and what he's done. Before we get started, make sure, please like, comment, subscribe, and share to all your socials. It is the absolute bare minimum we can do to help this channel without doing absolutely anything. We are nearing that 1,000 mark. We are almost there, guys. Please, 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 if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, please subscribe. I guarantee you'll like this channel. Okay, John Spytek came over from Tampa Bay. Now, what do we know about Tampa Bay? Tampa Bay's won the NFC South 4 years in a row, okay? They seem to always be in the mix. They always have great players. They're always able to keep a lot of their players. That starts with good drafting and good developing. There's 3 Ds when it comes to this whole player process. There's discovery. You got to scout them. Draft them. You got to select them, all right? And then develop them. You got to make sure that you maximize their talents, okay? That's all encompassing everything. You have to have a good scouting program. You have to have a good draft strategy. You also have to have very good coachings and coaching staff assistants and all that stuff in place to be able to develop these players. I think the Raiders got that. Let's take a look at some things that really let us know who John Spytek is. All right, above all else, John Spytek is a discover, draft, and develop guy. He's all about drafting and developing, okay? John Spytek said before in an interview, he said that when he left Tampa Bay, something ridiculous like 43 of the players on the roster were either drafted by or signed as undrafted free agents by the Tampa Bay Bucs themselves. That's an insane amount. That's like crazy amount, right? And on top of that, 20 of the 22 starters on the field were drafted or signed undrafted free agents by the Bucs. That's just an excellent example of draft and development. And I think that's the cornerstone of who John Spytek is as a GM. He's going to want to do that. He's going to want to build from within and fill holes with free agency. What that does is it keeps your costs low. It keeps your salary cap on the best players available who help your team. And you also get some pretty decent draft capital back in comp picks if you have players leaving in free agency, but you don't sign a ton of players in free agency. It all counts. It all matters because you want to have a lot more bullets in that barrel to go shooting at these players to make sure you get the most that you can out of these guys. And having more kind of shots at the bullseye, it's the better chances you have to getting those generational talents if you have more draft picks. A big thing with John Spytek and Pete Carroll as well is the character and the fit. You know, you have to be able to fit in with the culture of the team. And the culture that we have right now with the Raiders is going to be pretty strong. It's going to be all about football, all about competition, and all about being a good teammate. Pete Carroll said that in his introductory press conference, and John Spytek really doubled down on that as well. It's going to be big, man, because it's going to take a lot of effort and a lot of scouting to not just scout these players on the field, but also off the field. Now, does that mean we're never going to take a player that's had some issues in college? No, we're just going to do a lot more homework. And I think that's the right way to go about it. We don't want to have another Jalen Carter slip through our fingers and pick up a Tyree Wilson instead. So John Spytek said himself, culture fit. And John Spytek said to himself, it's character and culture fit. I think that's what we're going to look for too. We're going to look for guys who really love football, who love the grind. And that's another Tom Brady trait himself. He was a great teammate. He pushed his teammates. He expected a lot from his teammates, but he also expected a lot from himself, not only on the field, but off the field. How he carried himself, how he was in meetings, how he was in film, all these things. This is what we're going to look for as the baseline. If you want to be on this team, you have to be willing to be a good teammate. You have to have good character. You have to be willing to work. This is the non-negotiables, right? And if anyone is found not following any of these core principles of this team, then they're not going to be around very long. And I think let's hope that John Spytek and Pete Carroll don't have to make any examples out of anyone. But we've seen in the past, and it's evident by some of the late season collapses and some of the blowouts when the team was kind of feeling themselves, that there's some players on this team who probably do need a little bit of freshening up. Another characteristic of John Spytek is really his hands-on like scouting. He really gets in there himself and he watches, he grinds tape, he watches tape, and he really knows what he's looking for when it comes to different positions. I think this is great. This is something that I think is very much needed in a GM. A lot of the GMs nowadays really aren't tape grinders. They take their word for a lot of their scouts, and they're more of like paper pusher, negotiation type guys. Now, that's a big part of it too, but if you can see what these scouts are seeing in the tape, definitely something that it's going to be a definite plus. Spytek was, he was an area scout when he was with the Broncos, and that was all he did. He went and he saw players play live. He was grinding the tape, cut up tapes, and send the tapes up, up the ladder to see, hopefully that some of the guys that he scouted are going to be drafted by the team. Now it's his decision on who to draft, and I think that Spytek getting his hands dirty and spending the hours grinding this tape is going to be a big advantage for us, because not only are he going to be able to trust the pick that he makes because he saw it with his own eyes, but he's also going to be able to develop the scouts underneath him to look for the things that he's looking for. What better way to get a scout to be on board with how you look at things by going in there yourself and grinding that tape yourself? Trust me, I watch game film and it's tedious at times, but you get a lot of these just gems out of this tape. Even if you can watch a whole game and get one or two plays that really should encapsulate what a player is, it's a great find. And that's what we're going to get with John Spytek. It's going to really help us out solidifying our early round choices, but also help us get these diamonds in the rough in later rounds. Collaboration is huge with John Spytek, man. Just massive. He said so himself in the press conference, and I think that it's going to be a really tight relationship with him and Pete Carroll. You can get all the players you want, but if they're not the players that kind of fit what you want to do, there's only so much you can change your system as a coach, right? Now, I understand coaches should be able to adjust their system a little bit to accommodate the pluses and minuses of the players on their team, but there's only so much you can kind of adjust your system before it just stops being something that you run and you want to do. You do have to get the positions and the type of players that you're looking for that fit what the coach wants as well. And that collaborative effort is going to be huge, especially when you have a third voice like a Tom Brady involved to see, have a say in what happens with the quarterback choices and the draft choices and pretty much all the choices moving forward. It's a lot. Trust me, if you've ever tried to do like a group project or something like that, that's just like a project for a class. This is not like millions and millions of dollars and wins and losses and jobs on the line, right? That's what's going to happen. The better the collaboration, the better the output. I really do think that John Spytek, having been kind of cultivated and groomed in that type of environment with Tampa Bay, and Pete Carroll having that type of environment with Seattle, I think it's going to be a great marriage between those two. The collaboration is going to be huge. Okay, so just because Spytek's done it one way in another place doesn't mean he has to do it the exact same way with us. He even said so himself. There's no one best way to do things. If you can get the guys you need during the draft, you got them during the draft. If you had to dip into free agency, well, you dip into free agency. The Tampa Bay needed an upgrade at quarterback, and they had a really good team. So what did they do? They went out and they got Tom Brady. Tom Brady wanted some guys that were just a little bit more comfortable with. What did they do? They enticed Rob Gronkowski to come out of retirement. Yeah, man, those are huge signings. You also had signings like Jason Pierre-Paul on the defensive side, re-signing of Ndamukong Suh when he was kind of like a gun for hire, jumping from team to team. He took a lesser deal to stay with Tampa Bay. That takes some negotiation skills as well. But having that flexibility in your approach to be able to not only build your team through the draft, but go and get those heavy hitters at the strategic positions. If they're out there and they're able to be had and you have the cap space because you have a lot of homegrown talent, that's when you strike. And John Spytek's been a part of an organization who's done that. We've talked about this before. Coaches think this season, GMs think 3 to 5 seasons down the road. How is this going to work? How is it going to help cap next year, the year after, stuff like that? And Spytek really has a good, firm grasp on a long-term view. The vision is there. You see the goal out there, and then you have the milestones leading up to that goal. You can't build a team, a good team that's won 4 division titles in a row, and have the bulk of your team be either drafted by you or undrafted free agents signed by you if you don't have a long-term vision. This is something that's really needed for us in the Raiders organization. We've had just bust after bust. And you know what? Busts are going to happen, right? When you're constantly taking these guys that are, question marks, right? Like we took Tyree Wilson and I wanted to be positive about it, but I knew we should have taken Jalen Carter because he was just the better player. And he turned out to be a better player. He's an all-pro player and he's a key player on a Super Bowl winning team, man. When your GM has a long-term vision, he's not just caught up in the hype. He's not caught up in the short term. He's not caught up spending a lot of money on a Trent Brown, on a Joyner, on a Corey Littleton. Like there's a lot of players that we signed in free agency that we just shouldn't have signed now. And it's happened continuously. It's not just a Gruden Mayock thing, okay? You had the whole Jimmy G thing that happened in this last year. We had a Gardner Minshew that was just blew up in our face. On top of that, you had Andrus Peat and Cody Whitehair on the offensive line who just really didn't do much for us. We had these needs, and we just didn't really fill them with any type of true talent. Running back as well, we had a couple of guys that were, they're all right, but the Madisons of the world, the Amir Abdullahs, they played okay, but, they're not starting caliber running backs. And we had all these holes to fill, and, the previous regimes just kind of like had this spray and pray approach where they got a bunch of guys at lower deals. You're better off just getting one or two guys at key areas and filling the rest with younger players. And, man, hopefully that Spytek can really help us out with that because this long-term vision hasn't been very good for the Raiders, especially, I think, under JMD and Ziegler. They got rid of a lot of good players just to kind of bring in quote unquote their guys and kind of blew up in their face. Look, I think we have a lot of core players on our team that we need to re-sign, especially on the defensive side. We do have some challenges offensively. Of course, we need a quarterback. I would like another player on the outside, another playmaker ball catcher. We need a running back. We need to fortify this offensive line. We have needs on the offense up and down. So having that approach to be able to get some players now in free agency, but also draft these players that can develop into starters in 1 or 2 years, I think that kind of holistic approach is going to really be the ticket for us. And John Spytek has been shown to be the catalyst and architect of those types of situations. So piggybacking off of the whole collaboration thing, you got to get players who kind of fit what your coaches want to do, right? And Spytek is just a master at doing that. He's been doing that ever since he was with the Broncos and scouting for the specific guys that they're looking for. That's what we need. We not only need the best player that we can get, but also a player that fits what we want that player in that position to do. That's going to be huge for us. I don't know that in Tampa Bay they've really drafted anybody who was kind of like, a square peg in a round hole type of thing, right? It's going to have to happen. It's going to have to happen quick for us here because I don't know how much time Pete Carroll has. He's got a 3-year deal or 2-year with a third option. I think it's going to be right around the time that he's going to decide if he wants to stick around for 1 more year or not. But if we want to get this thing rolling, we got to get it rolling right away. So being able to get the best player available that also fits what you want to have done on your team from the coaches, I think it's going to be huge, and Spytek has the track record of doing so. Above all else, it's the energy. Spytek is like the GM younger version of like the Pete Carroll, okay? He's just energetic, super positive, super motivating. Max Crosby said it in the interview. He hears the guys upstairs in like the executive area, and they have the speakers go blasting with the music and everything. And it's like, if you're not excited about what you're doing, if you're not really pumped up about what you're doing and really excited to get the job done and really excited to do all the like just menial work, the kind of like minutia, if you're not excited to do all that, just get another job. I think Spytek is the guy that sits in and he just shuts the door in the room and just grinds that tape left and right. It's going to be something that we're going to really see what happens this first draft. Now, we're getting a little bit of a taste of it in the first wave of free agency, right? The first wave of free agency is usually, pretty big. Now, if we come out swinging and get a couple of guys here and there in key positions, you're going to be like, wow, this dude is not playing around. We're trying to win, and we're trying to win right now. What does that do to the draft picks and the draft strategy? Well, depending on who we sign, it could affect it quite a bit. But know that it's going to be high energy and the work is going to be done. Okay. We're not going to go into a situation where there be a free agency or it be for signing our own players or extending our own players or drafting new players without being supremely prepared. Because this dude, he learned by experience. He learned under the best guys that they had at Denver. He learned under GM Light over with Tampa Bay, and he did everything. He was about signing his own players, scouting new players, signing other guys from other teams and free agency. He has experience doing it all. And that's exactly what we're looking for. A young guy who's just motivated and he's got high energy to willing to do the grunt work, no matter where position he is. Like, because, you're the GM, man. You're like the top of the top, besides being an owner, right? and you're in there grinding tape, that's huge, man, because that shows everybody in the organization that no job is too small if you want to win. All right, guys, thank you very much for your time, man. Let me know what you think about the video. Let me know what you think about the overall outlook of John Spytek and what he's going to do in the draft coming up in free agency. Let me know what you think about the hire of John Spytek, and let me know what you think about what we should do in the draft, okay? Make sure everybody please like, comment, subscribe, and share to all your socials. It's the absolute minimum you can do to help this channel besides doing absolutely nothing. All right, guys, appreciate your time. Until next time, everybody. Peace. Hey, Raider Nation, thanks for watching. There's plenty more where that came from. Go ahead and smash that like button, drop a comment, make sure to subscribe and share to all your socials. It's the bare minimum you can do without doing absolutely nothing.